Hi, welcome to Short Orders. I'm Jeremy. Commercial kitchens, as you may be aware, are traditionally intense users of energy. In fact, on average, they consume as much as 3 times more energy per square foot than most other types of commercial spaces. That's for natural gas, but standard electric equipment doesn't actually fare much better. On average, each burner on a stove uses between 1,000 to 3,000 watts of electricity, and ovens use 2,000 to 5,000 watts. Using a stove and an oven for a 7-hour workday will use roughly 373,000 kilowatts of electricity per year, and that's just one burner and oven. And for sure, more efficient equipment exists, and things such as RDT's EcoCool line of refrigeration systems, which can cut energy costs by about 50%, or Smart Buffet, whose induction systems are the greenest in the world, using, get this, as much as 500% less energy than other brands. And those make for great talking points, and no doubt would make for a very engaging podcast, but that's not actually what we're going to focus on today. What we are going to look at is the actual manufacturing process. What are factories doing to decrease their carbon footprint, and to create systems that are sustainable, cost-effective, and quote-unquote environmentally friendly? That last one I put in quotations, because nothing we do on a manufacturing level is going to be a net positive for the environment. What with deforestation, factory runoff, questionable waste disposal practices, and high rates of CO2 emissions, all of these being issues within the industry. So let's see what some modern factories are doing to diminish these ecological impacts. And for the record, this is going to be a multi-part series. There's just no way we can adequately cover this topic in 5 minutes. So I hope you like this one, because there's a lot more where it came from.
You better buckle up, Buttercup!
Let's first take a look at power. Sure, you need it to run your equipment, but you also need it to run the factories that create your equipment. While there's no hard data on how much energy consumption is used specifically in the food service equipment manufacturing sector, the average American factory typically consumes up to 100 kilowatts of power per square foot per year, which is just an insane amount of energy. For comparison, if a factory hit that high water mark of 100 kilowatts of energy per square foot per year, that means each square foot of space emits the equivalent CO2 as driving an American sedan for 111 miles, burning 48 pounds of coal, or heating an entire house for 3 months. Again, not all factories consume energy at this exorbitant rate, but some do. Are you curious how we got these numbers? We've dropped a link to the EPA's greenhouse gas equivalencies calculator in the description. It's a fun and kind of depressing tool to mess around with. In 2018, the industrial sector accounted for approximately 32% of all energy consumption in the U.S., according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. It consumed approximately 27 trillion BTU that year, 85% of which went toward heating, drive power, cogeneration, which is essentially a form of energy recycling, we'll bring that back up in a later episode, and industrial boiler use. Though I should note that the U.S. manufacturing sector has seen diminished fuel consumption nearly every year since 1998, while manufacturing gross output grew by 12% and fuel consumption actually decreased by 16%, so we are seeing a fairly rapid rise in more eco-friendly efficient production. While that is good news, a full 1/5 of the world's carbon emissions, and according to the World Economic Forum, 54% of the globe's energy consumption currently come from manufacturing and production. So there is a lot of room left for improvement. Obviously, there's no one answer to solve this, and beyond that, hidden within the data, you'll find that the transportation and supply chain component accounts for 11 times more emissions than the actual manufacturing of goods. Needless to say, it's a complicated and very interconnected web of issues we're dealing with. But again, we're only looking at the actual manufacturing end today, and on that front, one way to offset those emissions, to raise sustainability and to become more self-reliant, is to move away from fossil fuel-dependent energy systems. And while this can be a large upfront investment, many companies are finding that they're recouping their money in short order. No pun intended. Maybe a little pun intended. Also, depending on where the factory is located, there may be government programs in place to help financially with the transition. While looking into this, I assume smaller startup-style companies would be where the change would take root the soonest. However, I was surprised to learn that one of the world's oldest manufacturers of porcelain in China recently converted their entire manufacturing operation to solar, among taking other steps to eliminate their usage of fossil fuels, much of which we'll discuss later in the series. In 2019, Churchill China installed 240 solar panels on the roof of their Stoke-on-Trent manufacturing site. Since then, they've continued to invest in solar, now leveraging the power of 4,500 panels on site. As of right now, 100% of the electricity used across their manufacturing base and head office is from renewable energy. That includes their fleet of forklifts, which is 100% electrical driven. Here in the United States, companies are also migrating their energy consumption away from fossil fuels. In Norton, Kansas, a 1,600 solar panel system provides 35% of the electricity usage needed for New Age Industrial to process over 4 million pounds of primary aluminum billet each year. At the time of installation, this was the largest private solar power system in the entire state of Kansas. I was going to make a wisecrack about the Kansas-based New Age making up the remaining 65% of their energy intake by harnessing the power of magic tornadoes or something like that, but that seemed like low-hanging fruit, and here at Short Orders, we're better than that.
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too.
Now, not every factory has the infrastructure in place or the ability to move fully into alternative energy power right away, but many of them are taking other steps towards limiting their carbon footprint. For over a decade, ARC International, aka ARC Cardinal, has utilized an emissions control system to greatly reduce the carbon emissions that commonly occur with natural gas furnaces. In doing so, they've far surpassed what the EPA requires, and now tout themselves as the cleanest glassware manufacturer in the world. All 3 of their furnaces, located at the Millville, New Jersey facility, have been fitted with the new filter systems. And although the project cost around $40 million to install, ARC International says beyond reducing the company's ecological impact, the upgrade also increased capacity on its 22 lines and created additional jobs in the U.S. And speaking of making upgrades, Perlicorp in Milwaukee recently instituted a complete electrical lighting change. All lights were changed from T12s to T8s, with T12s being an older generation fluorescent bulb that generates light through electromagnetic induction. This is a far less efficient method of creating light, with the T8 being around 35% more efficient than T12s, while both put out around 80 lumens per watt on average. A total of 1,700 lights were removed and exchanged. According to the company, this resulted in a return on investment of only 8 months due to the increased energy savings, and also drastically reduced Perlic's carbon dioxide emissions. It's like that old joke. How many beer system engineers does it take to screw in 1,700 light bulbs? Should we do it? Should we ask ChatGPT for the punchline? Yeah, of course we should. And the answer is...
none. They're too busy brewing enlightenment.
Thanks, ChatGPT. You are a true American hero. And with that, we'll wrap up for today, but stay tuned for the next installment of our Green Manufacturing series, where we take a look at waste reduction, recycling, and runoff. The 3 R's. And make sure to check out the description for this show. We've left you a few links for further reading, as well as some rather interesting infographics. First, however, we've got a quick ask. We'd be super excited if you wouldn't mind liking and subscribing to the show. That way you won't miss a single episode, including the rest of our Green Manufacturing series, and our upcoming look at food waste in the hospitality industry. If you found this episode informative, and we certainly hope you did, we think you'll really like that one as well. And just a heads up, you can also look forward to an episode taking a look at innovation and design within food service, as well as a look at cold brew coffee, just in time for the hot summer months ahead. So again, please like, subscribe, and share the podcast. And, as always, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again real soon.